Of course, just creating a list of things you want to change and knowing a bit more what it is that you want from life is only a very small first step in getting there. Now you have to actually start making things happen for yourself, and that means taking small, positive steps towards achieving your new goals. And this is where most people go wrong. Not because they go about achieving their goals in the wrong way, although this happens, but because they don't go about it at all. You see, the big problem for many of us is that we're seemingly waiting for something to happen. We're happy to just go along with our current lifestyles, which are good enough, rather than aim for something bigger and better. Now, sometimes this comes down to fear. Sometimes this comes down to thinking that they have no other option. Sometimes, though, it comes down to believing that waiting is legitimately the best strategy for getting what they want. I suppose the ultimate example of this is retirement. How many people do you think live their lives cautiously because they're saving for retirement? How many people put off going on holidays and traveling the world because they think it's better to wait for that payoff? But when you think about it, it makes no sense at all. Of course, it makes sense to plan for the future, but why would you defer your happiness until you're at a point in your life where you're not physically capable of enjoying it to the fullest? Why wait until you have no energy and a painful knee and spine before you start traveling the globe? It just makes no sense when you could take action now and start having the things you want immediately. Instead, you could start seeing the world now. You could take a sabbatical or just prioritize your travel on the experiences you want, rather than spending money on other things or saving as much. Don't wait for that perfect moment. Do the things you want to do now and live the life you want to live. Another example of this is wealth. A lot of people will dream about the things they want from life when they're wealthy. How many times have you imagined your perfect home that you're going to buy when you're rolling in cash? It's something most of us have done at some point. But now think about what that perfect home actually entails. Most likely it's a fairly standard property, but with the added bonus of looking cleaner, more spacious, and more luxurious. Does it need to be huge? Does a huge house really make you happier? Probably not. So instead of waiting until you're rich to have that dream home, how about thinking about how you can make your current home into your dream home? Take action now on the things you want. Let's take this moment to look at how you can turn any property into a dream home on a modest budget. This will hopefully then serve as a good example of how you can get what you want from life much more easily once you've narrowed down what you really want. In this case, you say you want to be rich, but what you really want is a beautiful home. You're putting off doing it because you think that requires you to be wealthy or retired. But you can have it right now if you just focus on the small differences that will make that property feel closer to the one in your dreams. Now, here are some steps you can take. First of all, throw out a lot of your things. Now, this might sound surprising, but the more of your things you throw out, the less items you'll be left with, and they'll start to look beautiful and amazing. If you have a lot of clutter in your home, then you're essentially lowering the average value and the average quality of the things that you do own. Throw out 90% of your ornaments, and the remaining 10% will be the most amazing looking things you have. Likewise, they'll look less cluttered and thereby draw more attention to themselves. They'll also be much easier to clean. You could go more minimal. Now, in general, going more minimal with your decor can help you to make your home look much bigger, and it also makes it that much easier to clean. It's also a very modern look that's much more affordable. So stop spending large amounts of money on collections of items that you don't need, and instead save up for just a few beautiful things. Then you should prioritize. If it's your home that gives you the most pleasure, then how about prioritizing it and spending a bit more money on it right now? That might mean cancelling your television subscription, for example, and putting that cash into a cleaner. Or it might mean not going on holiday this year and getting double glazing instead. You should also learn decor. Now, this is a big one. Instead of just placing items around based on what you think looks good, spend some time learning what makes great decor. Once you learn the tricks, you can take a relatively standard looking room and make it look incredible. Does your room have a color palette? Do your cushions match your drapes? It sounds silly, but these practices have developed over years of research and they make a huge difference. And you can look for bargains. If you know where to look and you leverage your contacts, you can make some amazing additions to your home relatively cheaply. Now, this may mean that you speak nicely to your friend who happens to be a builder, you get mates rates. Or it might mean that you look on FreeCycle to find free furniture. And finally, you can get a few centerpieces. Just a few high-tech pieces of technology or a few amazing decorations can make all the difference to your home. Depending on your priorities, that might mean adding a massive flat-screen TV to your living room or some kind of spectacular water fountain. This bit is expensive, but it's all about investing your money wisely, making the biggest impact with the fewest changes. And sometimes it's just about doing something different that people don't see all that often. This makes your home memorable, and it doesn't even have to be expensive. Suddenly, that home that you thought was off limits starts to feel a lot closer. Sure, it's a compromise, but while you work on becoming that millionaire, you'll be much happier with the property that you're in. Stop deferring your happiness. Ask what you can do right now within your means to be happier. The same kind of approach can be applied to your dress sense. Just a few clever changes can make your outfits that much more impressive, and it also applies to your lifestyle. On a final note, you'll find that sometimes the things you want are in contrast to one another. Remember that scenario we talked about earlier, the pilot who wants to fly long haul but doesn't want to leave his family? Well, actually, it's more complicated than that. What he really wants is to fly for British Airways, he's in the UK, because it gives more status than his current position at EasyJet. Moving there and flying long haul would be the next logical step in his career, but it also means upending his family, because British Airways don't fly from Manchester, which is where his wife wants to live, and it would mean spending long times away from home. Now, logically, it makes sense to stay where he is, especially as the salary is just as good. But his heart is telling him to take BA for the excitement of moving forward in his life. So, what does he do? Of course, there's no right answer here. Whatever he does will mean choosing one thing over another and sacrificing some aspect of his ideal lifestyle. So, what do you do in situations like these? Well, often the answer is try your best to do both. How in this case can you possibly do both? Well, one answer might be to move to BA for a couple of years and fly long haul, and then subsequently give up long haul and settle down with the family. Another option would be to move to a third airline, such as Virgin. Here, he'd still get the status and he'd still get to fly further, but he would be able to live in Manchester. And maybe he doesn't fly long haul, but flies further than Europe. As you can see, there are almost always compromises when you're torn in two directions. Wherever possible, the answer to either or should be both.